Alex Eala has accomplished something few players could have imagined just days ago. Competing in her first-ever tournament in Berlin, the 21-year-old Filipina has stormed through the draw by defeating 3 consecutive top 10 opponents in straight sets at a WTA 500 event. Her remarkable run began with a commanding victory over Donna Vekic, the reigning Queen's Club champion, before she delivered an even bigger statement by overcoming world number 2 Elena Rybakina 7-5, 6-4 in one of the most significant wins of her career. The emotional impact of that triumph was evident when Eala admitted afterward that she was still shaking from the experience. Rather than slowing down, she carried that momentum into the quarterfinals, where she defeated 6th seed Alina Svitolina 6-3, 6-4 with a level of composure and maturity that belied her age and experience. 3 matches, 3 straight-set victories, and 3 elite opponents conquered. It is already one of the most impressive stories of the 2026 grass court season. Yet the challenge awaiting her in the semifinals may be the most compelling of all. Standing across the net will be Linda Noskova, the very player who handed Eala one of the toughest defeats of her season just 3 months ago at Indian Wells, where the Czech star cruised to a dominant 6-2, 6-0 victory. That history adds an entirely new dimension to this matchup. This is no longer simply about a player riding a wave of confidence, it is about measuring how much Eala has evolved since that painful afternoon in California. Has she transformed into a fundamentally different competitor, or will Noskova once again expose the gaps that existed in her game earlier this year? To fully appreciate the significance of this rematch, it is necessary to revisit their previous encounter. Eala arrived at Indian Wells full of confidence after navigating a challenging path into the round of 16, including a hard-fought victory over Diana Yastremska and an advancement against Coco Gauff. Ranked inside the world's top 35 and playing with increasing belief, she appeared ready to challenge the sport's emerging elite. However, Noskova delivered a masterclass that immediately shifted the narrative. From the opening game, the Czech star dictated the tempo with precision and authority, using a powerful first serve and relentless aggression to seize control of virtually every exchange. Her serve repeatedly stretched Eala wide on return, forcing the Filipina into uncomfortable positions and placing her under pressure before rallies could even develop. It was a performance that highlighted the gap between potential and established elite-level execution. Now, just months later, they meet again under entirely different circumstances. Eala arrives with newfound confidence, major victories, and a rapidly growing reputation, while Noskova seeks to remind everyone why she dominated their first meeting so convincingly. The result could reveal just how far Eala's game has progressed and whether her extraordinary run in Berlin is the beginning of something even bigger. Eala managed to win only 2 games in that Indian Wells encounter and was completely shut out in the second set. It was a difficult defeat to absorb, but her reaction afterward revealed something important about her character. Rather than dwelling on the scoreline, she spoke with conviction about her belief that she belonged among the sport's elite and intended to remain there. At the time, it was impossible to know whether that experience would become a turning point that strengthened her resolve or a setback that lingered in the back of her mind. The months that followed offered few immediate signs of a breakthrough. Her clay court campaign proved challenging from start to finish. She suffered straight-set defeats to Leylah Fernandez in Stuttgart and Elise Mertens in Madrid, and although she reached the 3rd round in Rome, Elena Rybakina once again halted her progress with a convincing victory. Strasbourg ended in disappointment after a 3-set loss to a qualifier, while Roland Garros concluded with a first-round exit against close friend Eva Liss. Between April and the end of May, Eala recorded just 4 wins against 6 losses on clay, and her ranking gradually slipped away from the career-high territory she had worked so hard to reach. For a period, it seemed as though the unforgettable moments of her previous season, the stunning victory over Iga Swiatek in Miami, her first Grand Slam main draw success, and her breakthrough run to the Eastbourne final, were becoming distant memories rather than signs of a rising star's future. Then the grass court season arrived, and with it came a noticeable transformation. It wasn't sudden or dramatic. Instead, it developed steadily, 1 match at a time. The shift began in Birmingham, where Eala entered a WTA 125 event as the top seed. Expectations were high, but manageable. She opened the tournament with a dominant 6-0, 6-2 victory, a result that appeared routine on paper but carried significant importance after several difficult weeks. Confidence gradually returned. The second round presented a tougher challenge, with Eala trailing deep into the second set before producing an impressive comeback to secure victory. Her semi-final required another test of resilience, stretching into 3 sets and demanding both physical and mental toughness. Then came the final, a dramatic battle filled with momentum swings, pressure moments, and interruptions from the weather. After dropping the opening set, Eala responded with determination and composure, fighting her way back to claim the title in 3 hard-fought sets and secure the first grass-court trophy of her professional career. That victory carried an additional layer of significance. Before defeating Nikola Bartunkova, Eala had never beaten a Czech opponent in professional competition. Her record stood at 0-13. The Birmingham final finally broke that streak and provided a breakthrough that seemed like a minor statistic at the time. Looking ahead to a semi-final showdown against another Czech star in Linda Noskova, however, that victory now feels far more meaningful. It marked the moment Eala began rewriting a narrative that had followed her throughout her career, and it may have been the first sign that a very different player was beginning to emerge. That detail becomes especially significant because Linda Noskova is Czech as well, and for much of her career, players from the Czech Republic have presented some of the toughest challenges Alex Eala has faced. Their combination of powerful serving, aggressive baseline play, and ability to dictate points early has often disrupted Eala's rhythm and exposed weaknesses in her game. The question now is whether her breakthrough victory in Birmingham marked the moment she finally overcame that obstacle or whether Noskova remains the ultimate benchmark for measuring just how far her development has progressed. Czech tennis has built a reputation for producing players with exceptional fundamentals, fearless aggression, and remarkable composure under pressure. It is a formula that has consistently created difficult matchups for Eala. While her victory over Nikola Bartunkova did not erase years of struggles against Czech opponents, it did remove an important psychological barrier. For the first time, she had concrete proof that she could defeat a Czech player in a high-pressure situation. That confidence traveled with her to Berlin. Arriving as a wildcard, Eala brought something that had been largely absent during her challenging clay court season: momentum. She carried the belief that comes from winning difficult matches, navigating pressure-filled moments, and lifting a trophy on the very surface where she is now producing the best tennis of her career. Yet standing across the net is a player who has built an equally convincing case as one of the tournament's strongest contenders. Linda Noskova has looked dominant throughout the week. The 8th seed opened her campaign with a commanding victory before following it with another one-sided performance in the second round. Her quarterfinal against Paula Badosa may have been her most impressive display yet, a ruthless 6-1, 6-3 victory completed in just over an hour. The numbers from that match highlight the extent of her control. She fired 8 aces, converted 4 break points, and successfully saved every break point she faced. It was a performance that showcased exactly why her serve has become one of the most feared weapons on the WTA Tour. Over the past year, Noskova has consistently generated free points with her delivery, regularly reaching speeds above 160 km per hour and overwhelming opponents before rallies have a chance to develop. On grass, those strengths become even more dangerous. The lower bounce and faster conditions reward flat serving and aggressive first-strike tennis, making it exceptionally difficult for returners to establish control. Against Badosa, Noskova faced 7 breakpoints and saved all 7, a perfect display of composure and efficiency that demonstrated complete command of her service games. That ability to protect serve under pressure is precisely what makes her such a formidable opponent. From a tactical perspective, this semi-final promises a fascinating contrast in styles. Eala's left-handed game naturally creates angles and patterns that many opponents find uncomfortable, while Noskova's right-handed power game is built around taking time away from her opponents and controlling the center of the court. On grass, those differences become even more pronounced. Every serve placement, every return position, and every baseline exchange could play a critical role in determining who gains the upper hand. It is a matchup filled with strategic complexity, contrasting strengths, and enormous stakes, making it one of the most compelling battles of the entire tournament. On grass courts, those tactical details become even more important. The faster surface rewards strong serving, shortens reaction time on returns, and magnifies every angle a player can create. This is where Alexandra Eala's left-handed game becomes especially dangerous. From the deuce court, she can swing her serve wide to Noskova's backhand, pulling the Czech star far off the court and immediately creating open space for the next attack. From the advantage court, she can target the body, forcing awkward contact and limiting Noskova's ability to unleash her full power. These unique angles are difficult for opponents to replicate in practice and help explain why Eala has been able to disrupt several elite players throughout her remarkable run in Berlin. The statistics reinforce just how much her game has evolved. Against Elena Rybakina, one of the most feared servers in women's tennis, Eala produced multiple aces and held serve effectively during the most pressure-packed moments of the match. She followed that performance against Elena Svitolina with another composed serving display, limiting double faults and consistently delivering first serves when she needed them most. For years, the serve was considered the most vulnerable aspect of Eala's game. Opponents often viewed it as an opportunity to attack. That perception is beginning to change. On grass, her serve is no longer simply a tool for survival, it has become a legitimate weapon capable of creating free points and setting up aggressive first strike opportunities. However, there is another side to this equation, and it may ultimately determine the outcome of the semifinal. As impressive as Eala's improvement has been, Linda Noskova remains one of the most explosive first strike players on the entire WTA Tour. Few players are better at shortening rallies, taking control immediately, and turning service games into quick, efficient holds. If Noskova consistently lands a high percentage of first serves, she can neutralize many of the patterns that have fueled Eala's success this week. The fewer rallies that develop, the fewer opportunities Eala has to use her movement, variety, and tactical creativity to gain an advantage. That contrast is what makes this matchup so compelling. Eala wants to create angles, extend key exchanges, and force Noskova into uncomfortable positions. Noskova wants to dominate early, dictate from the first shot, and keep points short before her opponent can establish any rhythm. It is a classic clash between tactical construction and raw power, between momentum and proven authority. The margin separating these two players may be incredibly small, but the stakes could not be much bigger. One arrives carrying the confidence of the hottest run of her career. The other arrives armed with the memory of a dominant victory and the belief that she can repeat it. When those forces collide on the grass of Berlin, the result promises to be one of the most fascinating contests of the entire tournament. This semifinal is about far more than two players carrying strong form into a major match. At its core, it is a test of whether Alexandra Eala's rapidly evolving all-court game can successfully withstand the exact brand of aggressive power tennis that exposed her weaknesses just 3 months ago at Indian Wells. That is what makes this matchup so compelling. The challenge facing Eala is arguably greater than anything she has encountered so far in Berlin because Linda Noskova's serve has looked even more dominant, more consistent, and more effective this week than those of Donna Vekic, Elena Rybakina, or Alina Svitolina. While Rybakina possesses one of the most feared serves in women's tennis, she never quite found her best rhythm during her match against Eala. Her first serve percentage fluctuated, opportunities appeared, and Eala was quick to capitalize whenever those openings emerged. Noskova has offered no such opportunities. From the first round onward, she has looked completely in command of her game. Her quarterfinal performance against Paula Badosa was perhaps the clearest example of just how dangerous she can be. Landing nearly 72% of her first serves and winning over 73% of those points, she produced the kind of serving numbers that consistently trouble even the highest-ranked players on tour. Those statistics are not merely impressive, they are the foundation of a game designed to overwhelm opponents before rallies have a chance to develop. That reality is why the memory of Indian Wells continues to linger over this contest. Their previous meeting was not decided by a handful of big points or a few unfortunate moments. It was decided by Noskova's ability to dominate the serve and return battle from start to finish. Eala struggled to make meaningful inroads on return, winning only a small percentage of first serve return points and spending much of the match reacting rather than dictating. Instead of applying pressure to Noskova's service games, she found herself constantly fighting to survive her own. The Czech star controlled the tempo, controlled the positioning, and ultimately controlled the outcome. Now, however, the circumstances are very different. Eala arrives with greater confidence, a stronger serve, improved grass-court instincts, and victories over some of the biggest names in the sport. The question is whether those improvements are enough to reverse the dynamic that defined their first encounter. If Eala can disrupt Noskova's serving rhythm, create opportunities on return, and force longer exchanges, she has every reason to believe she can turn the match into a genuine battle. But if Noskova serves at the level she has displayed throughout this tournament, she may once again make life extremely difficult for the Filipina star. That tension between past results and present form is exactly what elevates this semifinal from an ordinary matchup into one of the most intriguing contests of the entire grass court season. On the slow hard courts of Indian Wells, those weaknesses proved costly. Yet grass presents a completely different equation. The surface is faster, the ball stays lower after the bounce, and service games become even more valuable. Ironically, that could make Noskova's biggest strength even more dangerous. However, the defining question heading into this semifinal may not be whether Alex Eala can consistently break Linda Noskova's serve. The more important question is whether Eala's own serve has improved enough to keep her competitive during long stretches when break opportunities are limited. That is where the version of Eala we are seeing in Berlin looks dramatically different from the player who struggled in California. Her service motion appears more stable, her placement is sharper, and perhaps most importantly, her confidence under pressure has reached a new level. If she can continue serving with the same authority she displayed against Elena Rybakina and Alina Svitolina, she may not need multiple breaks to win. Against a server as powerful as Noskova, one tiebreak, one crucial break point, or a single momentum shift could be enough to change everything. Ultimately, this semi-final may come down to one simple but fascinating question: has Alex Eala improved her serve enough to neutralize the very weapon that overwhelmed her just 3 months ago? In Indian Wells, the match unraveled because she failed in both areas that matter most against an elite power player. She struggled to protect her own service games, and she was unable to apply meaningful pressure on Noskova's serve. The result was a one-sided contest that never truly became competitive. Grass, however, changes those dynamics significantly. The surface naturally rewards strong serving and narrows the margins between players. If Eala can reproduce the level she showed against Svitolina, where she protected her serve with remarkable consistency and won the vast majority of points behind her first delivery, then tight, highly competitive sets become a genuine possibility. And tight sets can completely transform a match. A lopsided defeat offers little room for confidence. A 6-6 tiebreak in the opening set creates a completely different psychological battlefield. Suddenly, belief grows. Pressure shifts. Momentum becomes fluid. Those are exactly the situations Eala has handled exceptionally well throughout her remarkable run in Berlin. Against Donna Vekic, she absorbed difficult moments, stayed composed under pressure, and eventually turned the match in her favor. Those experiences matter because they build the kind of confidence statistics cannot fully capture. There is also another element behind Eala's success this week that numbers alone fail to explain. Beyond the winners, aces, and service percentages, there has been a visible change in her presence on court. She looks calmer between points, more decisive in crucial moments, and increasingly comfortable competing against players many believed were beyond her reach. That confidence cannot be measured by data, yet it often becomes the difference between a talented player and a dangerous contender. The Alex Eala who arrived in Berlin as a wildcard was carrying momentum. The Alex Eala preparing to face Linda Noskova is carrying something far more powerful: belief. And if that belief continues to grow, this semi-final could become another defining chapter in one of the most remarkable grasscourt runs of the 2026 season. There is another factor behind Alex Eala's remarkable run in Berlin that statistics alone cannot fully explain: her growing psychological impact on opponents. Against Elena Rybakina, Eala admitted afterward that she was still shaking from the adrenaline of the victory. Yet during the match itself, there was no visible sign of hesitation. She played with extraordinary composure, stepping inside the baseline, taking returns early, and refusing to allow the world number 2 to dictate the rhythm of play. Rather than reacting to Rybakina's power, Eala flipped the script and forced one of the most feared players in the sport to adjust to her. That fearless approach became one of the defining themes of the upset. The same confidence was on full display against Alina Svitolina, a player renowned for her defensive brilliance, court coverage, and ability to drag opponents into exhausting battles. Eala never allowed that dynamic to develop. She controlled the initiative from the opening exchanges, won the majority of her service points, and converted half of her breakpoint opportunities, an exceptional number against a player of Svitolina's caliber. She did not wait for errors, nor did she rely on passive consistency. Instead, she attacked relentlessly, stepped forward whenever opportunities appeared, and repeatedly chose aggression over caution. That mindset has become a defining feature of her game throughout this tournament. The challenge now is determining whether that same formula can succeed against Linda Noskova. Much depends on which version of the Czech star arrives on court. When Noskova is serving at her highest level and consistently landing first serves in the mid-160 km/h range, opponents are often left with very few options. In those situations, holding serve becomes a necessity, while tiebreaks and a handful of crucial points can decide entire matches. Her power is undeniable. Standing nearly 5'10", she generates effortless pace from both wings, and her flat, penetrating ground strokes rush opponents into defensive positions almost instantly. Her backhand, in particular, cuts through the court with remarkable speed, making it one of the most dangerous weapons in her arsenal. When everything is clicking, Noskova looks every bit like a future top 5 player and a legitimate contender at the biggest tournaments in the sport. That reality is what makes this semi-final so fascinating. Eala enters with momentum, confidence, and victories over some of the biggest names on tour. Noskova arrives with superior firepower, a dominant serving performance throughout the week, and the memory of a comprehensive victory over Eala earlier this season. One player is riding the hottest streak of her career. The other possesses the exact style that has troubled Eala in the past. Something has to give, and that collision of confidence, power, and redemption is what makes this one of the most compelling matches of the entire grasscourt season. Linda